Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here again.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
And do you want to hear the big news? The big news is that our jigsaw, well, it's hard to know how to put this. It's finished.
It is finished.
In the sense that there are now 997 pieces fastened together. There are 3 gaps. Now, those 3 pieces that are missing, I'm going to find. They are going down. I'm going to find them. And I'm going to put them in anyway. We'll put a picture of our nearly completed jigsaw on the website, but that's where we are with it. It's right there on our left, just over there. 3 pieces missing.
Well, we thought as Christians we should find a Bible text to support this terrible situation we find ourselves in, and here it is. Suppose a man has 997 jigsaw pieces and loses 3. Does he not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until he finds them? And when he finds them, he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my 3 lost jigsaw pieces." So what are you going to do, Adrian? How are you going to rejoice with your friends and neighbours?
Bible at all.
You don't remember it?
No, not quite like that.
Have to hunt for that
the
as
answer
well.
to your question is I will not rejoice with my friends and neighbours. I don't like rejoicing very much. In
and
fact,
they're not allowed around anyway, are they?
No, they're not anyway, thank goodness. I don't like fun. I like laughing, but I don't like fun. In fact, years ago, one day in church, you will remember the person who ran it stood up and said, "Next week," he said in jolly tones, "we're going to have," and then he described how we were going to have one of those events where someone at the front says, "Turn your partners, bring them back, make her peak, go wiggity whack." And I thought, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that. I hate it. I'm not doing it. And you and the vicar's wife, who was very forceful, made me do it.
Yes, and what happened, Adrian?
Well, the horrific result was that I enjoyed it. And I also found a scripture which is as authentic as yours, which went, "I have come that they might have life and have it in abundance." So there we are. I had to give in that time.
It's a problem though, isn't it? Because you have a sense of humour like no one else that I know, and you love laughing, but you're not jolly in that sense, and you're constantly being asked about joy because people assume that you are.
Well, people think if you're a Christian, you're going to say certain fixed things,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I remember being interviewed, I think it was in Scotland, by somebody.
Oh, very early in the morning.
And, when I'm like a dead slug. And the thing about Christian interviews is that usually the interviewers want a particular result. They know what they want you to say before you start. And I remember this fellow saying, "I'd like you to tell me about Christian joy. Do you experience joy?" And I said, "Well, sort of, rather miserably." It was obviously disappointing for him. He said, "Yeah, but you like making people laugh, don't you?" And I said, "I love making people laugh, yes." He said, "So, tell me about joy. What is that for you?" And I said, "Well, it's not being happy. Jesus was obviously happy sometimes, but clearly there were really bad days he had. And it's not singing, certainly not that. It's not dancing."
It is for a lot of people,
Oh,
Adrian.
good for them, but it's not for me. It's not any of the usual things, really. And he said, "But you are a Christian, aren't you?" Obviously, trying to make sure I hadn't actually accidentally got a pagan on. And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, what is joy? For you, Christians experience joy, don't they?" And I thought, well, I'm going to have to really excavate deep and tell the truth. Every now and then, it's a good thing to do. You can do it if you decide to. And I looked deep inside me and I said, right, I have got an answer for you. 30-odd years ago, probably when I was 16, there was a spring of water opened up in me. And sometimes it trickles, sometimes it gets a bit blocked. And occasionally it whooshes. I like the whooshing. And that has always been with me. And I think it's for me, it's a reassurance that it's okay, I'm all right. And if you want to call that joy, that's fine. But I think that's what it is for me. That's what kind of holds me up.
Well, what you're
know.
saying is really important, isn't it? Because I think sometimes when people lose what they would call joy, they think it's all gone. And actually what you're saying is that living water, when it's I love the concept of the spring, something that is a gift. I mean, you don't create the spring, it's given to you. And then it's always there, even if
That's correct,
sometimes you
yeah.
really have to try and find it, and it may be a tiny little trickle that you find, but it's real.
Well, that's that. Some people lose everything but that,
Yes, exactly.
and are very disconcerted. But I think it's really valuable to discover that again and say it's still there. Yeah. Now, I mean, we can't always sort everyone's problems out over this, that is for sure. We get asked lots of questions. Here's someone who's really got some problems.
Adrian,
Yeah.
could I just ask you for a bit of advice?
Yes, of course.
Well, when the rain begins to pour
Yes.
and the thunder starts to roar, and I see the lightning flash, and my
Yes.
bank has spent my cash,
Right.
and my kids are loud and yobby, and the man next door is gobby, and my walls are cobweb frescoes, and I've left my phone in Tesco's, and my church decides to pray like a firework display, and my Bible study group is about to loop the loop, and my wardrobe's getting shabby, and I'm missing Downton Abbey, and my mother's will declares that a cat's a millionaire's, and no matter where I've gone, I go flying to square one, and my brain is like a sieve, and I've lost the will to live. Well, what should I do, Adrian?
Well, it's very simple. Just do as the Bible says and regard all those things as pure joy.
Yeah, chance would be a fine thing with us, really.
There are no easy answers. And in fact, the book of James does begin by saying, if you have problems, you regard them all as pure joy. Now, the good news for us is we crack that
Oh, we have, actually. We really have,
in our
yes.
household. Here's a fairly typical morning.
Adrian, you will never guess what.
Oh, what's that then, Bridget?
Well,
Yeah.
the car won't start.
Good.
And it looks as if the problem is highly complex and very, very expensive.
Fantastic.
I know.
Oh, that's really great, Bridget. I mean, fancy that happening on the same morning we get a huge electricity bill that we can't pay.
Oh, wow.
And do you know what? The ceiling is collapsing in the front room. I must say I consider all these things pure joy.
Oh, Adrian, so
Don't
do
you?
I. I mean, it's the most wonderful opportunity for us to practice perseverance through the testing of our faith.
Oh, yes, indeed. I should think we'll be about as mature and complete as it's possible to be after this little lot, won't we?
Adrian, let's ask God to give us wisdom to deal with absolutely everything, shall we?
Yes, because after all, he does give generously without finding fault, doesn't he?
He does, and we won't doubt, will we?
Doubt? Of course we won't doubt. We'd be like the
No.
waves of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind.
Oh, dear.
Oh, we've never been like that.
We've never been like
Not
that. But
ever.
actually, I don't know, God's been pretty good to us, because even though sometimes it has felt as though this spring has got a bit dried up, it's always seemed to bubble again, hasn't it, at some point?
Yes, it's quite interesting. I mean, we had a fairly longish period when I think we were quite bleak spiritually, weren't we? And when we were working with kids for a long time,
Yeah.
and there were very long hours,
Yeah.
and it was very testing.
Well, and we said, didn't we? We were talking about that silverleaf terminalia plant, where when you get very, very, very tired,
Yeah.
it's difficult to keep anything in proportion, and it's very easy to think that those things are to do with God, when they're actually just to do with jolly exhaustion.
Yeah. Those were bad days. But I think sometimes, I mean, going back to the business about people only having the spring left, and we've kind of talked about this before, but I think it's really, really important. There's an old thing people say, there's lots of soundbite things in the church, aren't there? And one of the things people say is, he's got it in his head, but it hasn't yet moved to his heart.
Yeah.
Or her.
Yeah.
Or it, doesn't it? Well, I guess that means something. I mean, in other words, somebody might have grasped the truth intellectually, but it hasn't begun to mean something to them. The opposite of that, though, is something I've encountered in a number of people. And I remember one young man in particular sitting with me and saying, I'm not sure what's happened to me. I can no longer think myself into being a Christian, but in my heart, I really still want God.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing about that is, and some people listening might identify with this, that's not a question of getting it from your head to your heart. It's a question of getting it from your heart up to your head to find words and ways of thinking that don't leave you feeling like an idiot or don't make you go against your sense of what is authentic and what is real for you.
Well, that's the key, isn't it, for you? Because some people they are jolly.
Yeah,
They're true extroverts. They love, well, I know that means you find your energy in other people, and they are made like that. And they do find joy in singing. In fact, a friend of ours, after being through a terrible experience, do you remember, she said that going to choir was the very best thing because you just sing, and there's something about singing, there's something about dance. Although I don't think you have ever quite experienced or understood this, but there is something about dance that just releases you and gives you that sense of joy. Music, all these things, they are, I'm sure, intended by God to actually, for the right person, give them a glimpse of what joy is about.
I remember, do you remember the lady who came to speak to us one evening? It was in Eastbourne, I think, or Brighton, I can't remember, and said, I'm glad you're here. I want to tell you something. I put on my best counselling.
Of course, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
And she said, I hate my church.
That's right.
So I said, oh dear. She said, yes, I hate it. So I said, oh dear. She said, it's the music. So I said, oh dear, because I'd done that Christian counselling course, if you remember. And she said, they started using electric guitars and metallophones or something, she said. I hate it. So
this
I said,
was some time ago, wasn't it?
Yes, oh dear. And she said, we had a meeting in our church last night. She said, if Jesus had been there, he would have turned in his grave.
She did. It's wonderful,
I mean,
absolutely
for
wonderful.
a start, it was there.
Yes.
Secondly, he's not in his grave. That's the entire point of the whole exercise.
Yes.
And thirdly, he probably enjoys the electric guitars and the metallophones and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about how people do music or how people think about music.
No.
As with everything, it's about heart, isn't it?
It is, and it's about allowing the person who you were created to be to dig deep and find what is special for them, not feel that they are obliged to do the things that make other people happy. In fact, I think tomorrow we might do something based on the one activity that you are refusing to do once lockdown is over and will never do again.
What?
And that's doing the actions to songs, because that is a particular thing that you really, really don't like doing, isn't it?
No, I would kill to avoid that.
So we might
no doubt about
introduce you to a little bit more about that tomorrow.
I don't mind people enjoying other things. In fact, I was just thinking that at least one person we know is blessed with a bright, bouncy sort of love of life.
Exactly.
And
that's infectious.
It is infectious, yeah. And when we were working with him, we had a New Year's Eve thing, didn't we, where there were two options open to people, and they were printed like this on the program. You could either go and do a ceilidh with him and those who wanted to do it. Ceilidh is a sort of party Scottish
it's a barn dance, isn't it?
Yeah, one of them.
Just call it a ceilidh up here.
You go and do that, or you could go and be miserable with Adrian in this other room. And we had a great crowd come to be miserable in my room. We had an incredible laugh, didn't we? I mean,
you did.
It was great fun, but it didn't grow out of. I mean, they had a great time in the ceilidh too.
They did.
Okay, ceilidh away if you like. Or come and find out what can be dug up.
And they're to do with having fun and being happy. But what you're saying is that joy, Christian joy, is maybe about something just a little bit different. And that brings us back to the little spring, doesn't it?
It's very deep. And so if you want an interesting exercise, have a good look into yourself seriously and ask yourself this. Of all the experiences I've had and the things that have happened to me and through the doubts and fears and excitements and passions and things, what is the thing that has sustained me?
Yes.
What is it? For you, it might be a different metaphor. It may not be a spring.
Yeah.
It might be something else. But have a look. See what it is. And when you find it...
When you find it, just like finding the coin, or the jigsaw pieces, when you find it, have your own personal little party.
Yeah, you might have a lot of fun at a party. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.